is your host, it's Annie Talks.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Annie Talks, where we bring to you interesting stories about interesting people that you want to know about. I'm your host, Annie Rivera. Thank you for tuning in, and to those who have already subscribed. If you're new to the podcast, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. And if so, I personally invite you to subscribe. Annie Talks is brought to you by Luxwear Trends, affordable, luxurious timepieces for every occasion. Luxury that lasts forever, and that's what sets us apart from others. Find us on Facebook and Instagram or visit luxweartrends.com. That's Luxe weartrends.com. In this second episode of the Amazing Athlete series, my next guest is NICK KERN, who hails from the city of Brea, California. NICK is an NCAA Baseball Champion, a recipient of the Wilma Rudolph Student Athlete Achievement Award, and the 2017 Muscle Milk Athlete of the Year. NICK attended UCLA from 2013 to 2017, earning a degree in Physiological Science while competing for the Division I baseball team. While at UCLA, NICK's dreams and aspirations were put on hold when he was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, an autoimmune disease that put him in the hospital for over 50 days, requiring 5 surgeries to eventually remove his large intestine. NICK returned to baseball for the 2017 season at UCLA, and despite continued health complications, he is playing professional baseball and giving back to the community by coaching high school baseball. I really enjoy talking with NICK and hearing his story. Here now is my conversation with NICK KERN. Hey NICK, thank you so much for being on the show. I really truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. So why don't we jump right in? Give a sense of who you are, your background, and how you actually started playing baseball.
Sure. A little bit of who I am. I guess I'm now a professional baseball player, but just consider myself just a baseball guy for sure. It's been my life for as long as I can remember. But grew up in Brea, California, so in Orange County, Southern California, and went to school at Brea, went to high school, and then went to school for college at UCLA, so not too far from home, and got a degree in Physiological Science, as they call it there, but basically just physiology, and played baseball there as well. So, but a little bit of just the general baseball. I think I started in like a YMCA league, like before there was even like you're old enough to do like T-ball little league.
Oh my goodness!
And I think from what I mean, I don't remember this. It's so long ago. Our team name was like the Raptors because it was like I think Jurassic Park just came out or whatever. But anyway, my parents, from what they tell me, I had a talent for it from the get-go.
From what they tell you.
As like a 3-year-old or whatever age is.
Yeah.
But and then just played it nonstop, played a whole lot growing up, travel baseball, and then high school, college, and then now professionally for the Napa Silverados. Just finished my first professional season.
Awesome. So you touched a little bit about, how you started with the Y and then all the way up. So what time period can you maybe hone in on as to what sticks out most in your memory in terms of baseball?
The time period, well, it's for sure when I started playing travel baseball.
Okay.
From, I think, I was in 5th grade. So that puts me at like 10.
Okay.
Is when I really, really fell in love with it, because I played for the Placentia Mustangs, which is how I met you. Woohoo!
Yay!
Exactly.
We have a connection. It's through Christopher, and then the infamous coach. We'll talk a little bit about that. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. Yeah, so playing that travel baseball as a 10-year-old, and on that team, I think until we were like 13 or 14. But those core years where it went from, just a seasonal thing where you play in the spring or whatever to then playing year round, which it can really go one of two ways. It's like either you really love it and you just can't get enough, or you can kind of get a little burnt out and then decide, hey, maybe I don't want to do this nonstop 24/7. But I went in the direction of I just couldn't get enough.
Right.
So the practices, I think we practiced like, Tuesday, Thursday, and then like a Saturday morning practice, and then 2 games on Sunday, or then, the tournaments, 5-6 games in a weekend. And I ate it up. I loved it. There was never, there was a few times where it was like, I'm not sure I want to do this, but like 90% of the time it was like, I couldn't wait to get there and play. So,
and then you took a trip did you go to Cooperstown? Did you go with the whole gang? Oh, how was that? Was that fun?
That was so much fun. So yeah, they have that a huge facility in Cooperstown, New York. So I travel with the team there, and you hang out in the bunks with all the guys and some of the dads, and it was funny because another really good friend that I have besides Chris is Jared Love, who I played with there.
Right.
He's a lifelong friend from playing there, Central Mustangs. But we even talk about our days in Cooperstown and how the game's really fun, but hands down the best part of that was just like, it was basically like a week-long sleepover with the whole team. And so the nights in the bunks with the dads and the players and messing around and playing little games outside of baseball, that was the highlight for sure. And we did well. It's not like we did poorly and it was like, oh, I don't want to think about the baseball. No, we did really well. But it was like, that's fun, but that's really fun is just hanging out with the guys.
Yeah, I only heard the stories. Obviously, I wasn't there. I wasn't one of the, traveling parents, I kind of had to hold the fort down back home, but all the stories that I heard, and I laugh because the way that the storyteller, we all know it's Steve, right? The coach. He tells the story, and he's so, descriptive and all that. So it was just so hilarious. So yeah, I'm so glad that you were part of that. And so now let's talk a little bit about how you were playing for UCLA Bruins. This was an NCAA Division I baseball team, and you were also the team was also named to the Pac-12 All-American second, or you were named to the All-American second team Pac-12 in 2015. So how was that? How did all that playing for UCLA and then being named to second team? How was that? How did that make you feel?
Oh, it was great. Like the UCLA experience, I just learned so much. You kind of come in, you've been playing baseball your whole life, and you come in, you're like, I know this game. And then I got there, and I actually was recruited more as a pitcher. And I told our coach, like I want to hit also, but he's like, I really like you on the mound, because I had thrown my senior year of high school. So I go there as a pitcher, and I think I know the game pretty well, and wow, like as soon as I, shut my mouth, opened my ears a little bit, and then took in the info, I learned so much just that freshman year. And that freshman year, I actually was throwing fairly well. They shut down the hitting. They had me focus on the pitching for the year. But I was throwing well, but our team was so stacked in pitching that year. We won a national championship that year. So I actually didn't step between the lines ever and play, but I still traveled with the team and went to Omaha, dogpiled when we won. So that was an incredible experience for sure. And then after that, then I, as I progressed, I played more and pitched, and the award that I got was actually, I think it was an academic All-American. So it was that I basically played well and then was hammering out the academic side, which was, my major was physiology. The whole time I thought, I was like, from the very get-go, even like the Central Mustang days, it was hey, Nick, work at the baseball, but school comes first. And at the time, I went in thinking I was either going to be a doctor or a physical therapist.
Wow.
And I kind of bounced between the two. And I kind of looked at how much schooling I was going to have to do. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to go to all the schooling. Might as well be a doctor. So I was pushing for that. And so I was taking all these pre-med classes at UCLA with, and for them, that's their sport. They're as competitive as could be. It's like, get an A or die trying.
Oh my goodness. Right.
Because they're trying to, get into med school, and that's obviously extremely competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm over here competing, at baseball for 8 hours a day or whatever it was. And then you switch over, and then I got to attempt to compete in the classroom with obviously brilliant students. So that was definitely the grind of UCLA. So time management, but the time management you got to really master in college, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my ability to balance those two kind of got me onto that.
That All-American second team. That's awesome. Still, it's a great feat because it is a balancing act. We all know it's definitely that, and it takes a toll, and to still have the mental capacity and the emotional and the physiological capacity to still do all things like that you went through speaks volumes of your your determination. So in 2015, you were diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And you missed what would have been your third season at UCLA because of this. Right. So tell us about that and what you had to undergo through, you went through 5 surgeries, and you even had your large intestine removed. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that. What went through your mind, and how were you able to cope with all of this?
Right. Yeah, that's it's a long period of my life. I mean, I got sick starting in August, and then the surgeries didn't finish until, I don't know, maybe close to May or April. I think April. So it's a long time to be sick. I mean, you usually think of like, oh, I get sick, I go to the doctor or whatever, in a week you're totally back. And even at the beginning of when I was getting sick, I was just kept thinking, oh, I'll go to the doctor. As soon as I figure this thing out, I'll be back to normal or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's a little weird to have something where it doesn't really go away. To where when I finally did get diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, it was like, oh, this is like a chronic disease. Like, this is a whole different deal. It's not just like take these pills and you're good. So, I mean, it was tough, obviously. And ulcerative colitis is just very painful. And there's also a whole realm of how bad you can be, or how bad your symptoms are and such. And most people, they get ulcerative colitis, they get on the right medicine, and then they can get the disease. Basically, the terminology they use is remission. So then it kind of goes into dormant, and then you're kind of back to normal, and it can kind of come back later on and such. But for me, I essentially never got it into remission. So I spent that whole time trying to get into remission, but just continuing to have, the main symptom pain-wise is just really bad stomach cramps. And then a lot of trips to the restroom, and then just bloody stools and such. And so that once that started, it didn't really stop. And we went through surgeries and such. But the whole time, I guess I had a couple things that really made it a much different experience than it for sure could have been, because it's a lot of suffering, and that. I could see how it could have definitely destroyed me. But I had a couple things going on. Basically, the whole time I was like, okay, like, this is awful, but when I get back to playing baseball, this is going to be a great story. I remember telling myself that. I'm like I was like trying to look at it from above and just go, okay, this sucks right here, but like,
right.
Once I come back, and the whole focus the whole time was once I come back, like, this is a story, and I'm going to come back. And with the pain that I've been through, like, workouts aren't going to be tough. Like, like there's, I've got perspective on what life can really be. So I was like, it's going to be like, I got to get back. And that was huge, just because I wasn't too much dwelling in the moment and the pain. And I also wasn't looking, knowing that, okay, like sometimes when things are starting to get worse, it's like, okay, today I'm in a ton of pain, and tomorrow the pain's likely going to be worse. But I wasn't really caught up in that at all, because I wasn't thinking about tomorrow. I was thinking about next year or in 6 months. I was like, in 6 months, I'm going to be fine again, and I'm going to be playing baseball, and it's going to be amazing. So that was huge, because the whole time, I mean, it was, and it's not to say I didn't have, rough times or rough weeks where I wasn't as optimistic and positive. But in general, it was always, I was looking far ahead, and like, when I get back to baseball, this, and I'd be visualizing what it was going to look like and all this. So that was huge. And then the other huge piece, probably bigger than even that, was the support that I had from family and friends. I mean, they came together like I didn't even know was possible. Because I mean, I was staying at UCLA's hospital, Ronald Reagan Hospital, and so it's right next to campus. So I've got buddies from the team that could come and visit, and I've got friends from back home in Orange County. So it's like an hour drive without traffic. With traffic, it's like 2.5. And they're driving up to see me, and then I have my parents, who, my mom basically just stopped working and stayed in the hospital with me. And I was in the hospital for, like, the tally, I think, is like 56 total days throughout all of it.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm in a hospital bed in UCLA is a really nice hospital. So in my room, there's just like a little couch, very narrow. And she just basically slept there every night and was the best nurse, in the world for that period of time, for sure. And then my dad, he'd finish work, and my dad works incredibly hard, like unbelievably hard. And he'd take off from work and drive straight over, and late nights, and they were so incredibly strong through it, and like positive the whole time, and helped me through everything. And so I really can't thank them enough, because that little community of people coming around, and my brothers too, that meant the world. Because I mean, I kind of jokingly say it, but there's also a lot of truth in that. That, like, even with the pain, whenever I wasn't really in terrible pain, even when I was still in some pretty bad pain, just knowing that what they were doing, they like actually really cared about me that much, and they were coming out. I mean, I kind of felt almost better about my life then than kind of before, just because that love and community. So
that is so awesome. I have to say that I love your parents, your Katie and John. They're so incredibly positive. When we were in Mustangs and travel ball and the little places we would go to, they were such a joy to be around. So I mean, and then look, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Look at how upstanding boy you are, or man you are. So it's definitely a testament to your parents, and then of course to yourself, because just the upbringing that you've had, and the absolute positive reinforcement and foundation that you have in your parents. So definitely, all good people. And I liked what you said earlier, that you had to basically psych yourself out to see within, 6-7 months down the line, when I return to baseball, it's something that you were able to cling to.
Absolutely.
That got you through, right? It was that,
absolutely.
It was the love and the drive. It was all that. It was just it was embodied in you. So, oh my gosh, I love that story. I got goosebumps just thinking about it. Seriously.
And there's actually, I mean, there's a little more to that side of it too. 'Cause I mean, I kind of had like a vision for, like, and it ties into when I was playing at UCLA, like I said earlier, where I was a pitcher, right? And my take on pitching for baseball is that pitching is a necessary evil. That way the rest of the guys can play baseball. So all the position players, they get to go and play every day and
Right.
play their position, infield, catching, outfield. They get to hit, they get to do all this stuff, run the bases, steal bags, and their whole time, like, as a ground balls and infield, it's like a dance with the ball, and tracking down fly balls, diving for stuff. There's this whole realm of athleticism that really gets to go on in playing a position of baseball.
Right.
And then, at least in my experience, and then pitching is just like, okay, get on the mound, look at your target, and throw the ball as hard as you can. And do that until your arm hurts too bad to do it anymore. Rest and do it again. So I had all of that. So I pitched at UCLA early on, but I basically sorted it out and proved myself enough that, hey, I can actually hit at the college level, and I'm athletic enough. I can play in infield positions that I really wanted to do. And so right when I was transitioning into no longer pitching, because I kind of tweaked my elbow a little bit. So I was like, okay, I talked to the doctors, talked to my coach, like, okay, pitching's done. I'm now just going to be a full-time position player. That's right when I got sick. It's right when I was making that transition. And it was official, pitching's done, I'm going to do this. And so I was so ecstatic to it had been my vision to play a position since since I got to UCLA. So I'd spent 3 years working on transitioning out of pitching as I was, trying to help the team as a pitcher, but I'm like, I really want to do this. And so it was then finally, okay, it's finally time I get to play, infield and play every day. And then I get sick. So there was that, because of that. So it was, I guess what I'm saying is, it was more than even my vision in the hospital to go get back to playing. It was like I was robbed of the climax of my perceived story right before. It was like, okay, everything at college had been building up to then become my idea of who I was, which was this infielder in college. And right before I was going to get it, it was like, actually, let's just challenge you even more right now and take it all away and get sick. So because of that, I was really just like obsessed with, I was like, I was so close. Like, I'm coming back for sure.
Oh my gosh.
So, that's kind of like the true story in it, because a lot of times if you give like a quick interview or whatever, you have to cut that like the whole kind of holistic story of what was really going on out. But now that we have an hour to talk on a podcast,
oh my god, I totally am so excited to have heard that, because I like what you said, that you had this opportunity and you were on the cusp of becoming the player and the athlete that you wanted to, and then you were derailed, but it robbed that opportunity for that moment, right? But you still had that vision, and you knew what you wanted to do. You were not gonna let that just derail you completely 100%. I love the story. I love how you turned it all around and came back. So let's actually talk about that.
Sure.
So once you got the all clear from your doctors and you started exercising, tell me about that. So you started exercising again, hitting small milestones and setting small goals for yourself. And then you returned for your final season at UCLA. I'm just kind of reading a chronology here, and you were named Muscle Milk Athlete of the Year by CPSDA. What is CPSDA?
Oh, it's like
it's an acronym for something. Okay. Right? So okay. No problem. And then you were also a recipient. You were also a recipient of the Wilma Rudolph Student Athlete Achievement Award, and for your tremendous comeback efforts. So now, that's a mouthful. So tell us in your own words, basically, when you got the all clear from the doctors, and then what were your steps to your recovery and then coming back? Right.
So I guess the simplest way from the first time. So I had a couple times where I thought I got the all clear, where I got the all clear, but then stuff went wrong and setbacks and such. But when I got the all clear, I basically, I'd lost ulcerative colitis and such. You lose a ton of weight. So basically, all of my muscle was gone. So I went from like 185, I basically kind of bounced between 180, 190 pounds, and in college, not sick. When I got sick, I was like I dropped down to 150 every time, pretty much. It was like,
Wow.
if you just take me with my, necessary organs and bones and such and skin, I'm 150, take away all the muscle. So I dropped down to 150, and one time I think I kind of started to get healthy in like, I don't know if it was like the end of November, middle of November. And I was like, okay, I need to be ready to go by like January. So I was like, I got like a month and a half or something, 2 months. And I was like, okay, how do I put on 30 to 40 pounds of muscle in 2 months? And I was like, but I love movies for inspiration and such. So, I mean, and just, I watch movies all the time. So I was like, wait a minute, these actors throw on muscle in no time all the time. So I literally, YouTube and Googled, what do they do? Whatever. And a lot of times they don't say exactly what they're doing, because I'm guessing they're probably using some supplements along the way. But I ignored that and was just like, okay, it's possible. These guys do it. And they'll tell you, they eat every 3 hours and chicken breasts and rice and all.
Right.
That's what I went for. I treated myself. I was like, look, I'm just like an actor preparing for a role. And it's like every 3 hours we got to eat, and we got to do insane workouts every day. And then also the baseball workouts, because it's not good enough just to kind of bulk up and look good. Like, the muscles got to be functional.
Right.
So that's what I went for. I went for, I just pretend like I was preparing for a role for a movie, and it worked. I mean, I threw on 30 pounds that time, and then got sick again, yada, yada, yada. But then when I finally got the true clear after my last surgery, I think it was in April, then I, the first 10 pounds are easier. Then after that, it's a little bit tougher. And I just basically, my goal was always, okay, 5 pounds a month. So it's a little more than like a pound a week of pure muscle. And especially as you're getting closer, it's a little bit tougher. But, so I basically every morning was long workouts. And I also, I got a degree in physiology, or I was in the process of doing that at the time. So I kind of understood more or less how it worked, and you have to really challenge the muscle, and it's, you can't just lift the same amount over and over. It's always got to be like at the brink of failure. That was actually my favorite whenever working out. If I ever tried to do a rep and failed, I was like, yes, I actually pushed it. I could push it. And then
shock your body, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then between that and the eating, and then you get to sleep enough. That's a huge part that people don't talk about that much. That's when your body's actually doing a lot of the rebuilding. So make sure the hours are enough there. And then don't sleep in too much, because that cuts into time that I need to spend eating. So it's like finding the balance. So yeah, I went all in with it. And kind of nailed my goals as far as putting the weight on slowly. Then went and played summer baseball there, and kind of like a rehab assignment. And I'll tell you what, I loved every second of it, because it's almost awesome. Almost like happiness in my experience during that time was just, as long as it didn't matter where I was. Cause it's like, okay, I'm only 160 right now. Like if my goal was 190 or whatever, it's like, I'm so far. It's like, no, all it was like, I know, like I was moving in the right direction. And if it was like improvement, then I was ecstatic the whole time. So, I had all the motivation in the world, and I thoroughly enjoyed that summer. Cause I tell people, it's like, oh yeah, every day I wake up at 7, I eat until I'm basically about to throw up. And then I go and I work out, for 2 hours. And then I, go eat again. And then I go hit, and then I go eat again. And I go to a game, then go eat again. And I didn't drink. I didn't do it. I hung out a little bit with people, but it was extremely disciplined. And people are like, you did that for how many months? And I loved it. So
I love that you were extremely disciplined, but wait, so you did this all on your own. You didn't have a personal trainer. You just kind of DIY'd it and kind of, kind of like plotted your goal for,
right. I had a nutritionist named Beth Miller at UCLA, and she was awesome. And and I would sit down with her and go through different ideas and such. But it was not so much of me sitting there and it's like, listen, you're a professional athlete or, you know, a UCLA athlete, so you need to follow this plan. It was more of like, I sat down with her and it was like, I need to do this. Help me do this. And
Right.
so we were kind of bouncing ideas off each other. So we really worked as a team, much less so than like that kind of like trainer and student aspect where she's
Right.
like, she wasn't having to push for the ideas and the motivation or trying to convince me of anything.
Oh
It
my
was like, if she had a good idea, I was like, perfect, let's do it. And I'll make it happen.
That's
But
so
yeah.
awesome. See what I mean? It's like it's the drive and the determination. You were not going to let anything derail your chance, your, you know, what you were destined to do, you know?
Right. And you even said just right there, drive, which I think is like, I'm always very interested in like what really gets you motivated and like what, and I think a piece of that almost was that I got to choose everything that I did. So it wasn't like I was following someone else's plan and like, oh, I have to go, I have to do this workout, whatever. I knew enough about weightlifting and I've been doing it for long enough. So I was like, okay, I got to set it up. And that aspect of like me choosing how I was going to do it, I think allowed me to really have all that motivation. I don't think it would have worked had I had a coach tell me, hey, this is the workout you have to do. Like that, I feel like that would have robbed me of the drive that you mentioned.
Right.
I think that's like a huge, I think recently read a book called Drive, and that's like the first piece of it for having true motivation is autonomy, which is basically you choose what you want to do. And that's what I had. And I think that's a big reason why it worked.
Awesome. I love that.
I hope you're enjoying this podcast episode. We'll be right back after this short message from one of our sponsors. ComfoTherm Thermal Wraps are designed to help relieve the pain and swelling in and around the jaw, especially after wisdom teeth extractions. For more information, visit comfotherm.com. That's comfotherm.com. Hey there, Annie Rivera here. Thanks for tuning in to Annie Talks. Be sure to tell your friends about subscribing to the podcast, and don't forget to rate and review the podcast. Doing so helps out with the algorithm and helps others to find this podcast too. I also invite you to like my Annie Talks Facebook page. There you'll find other news, information, upcoming events, and all sorts of things. Stay in the know with Annie Talks. I also invite you to join the Annie Talks Community Facebook group, where we carry the conversation from the podcast episode to the Facebook group. Ask questions about the episode, about a guest, about the locations, you name it. Ask away. This forum is for you. See you on the Annie Talks Community Facebook group.
So now, after college, you went back to your high school in Brea and you became the assistant coach. Is that when you, I guess this isn't really a valid question because the baseball bug has always stuck with you, but what made you go after, trying out for the professional team?
Right. Well, actually, I tried to escape the baseball bug for a quick minute there. I right after college, I hadn't really done anything else but baseball, and so I was like, you know what? Let's take a look at what else there is. It was kind of I thought there was a little bit of closure on that whole story. That's that character arc that I had for becoming the position player and such, and overcoming the illness. But so I was like, okay, I wanted to make finish college. I got this physiology degree, and I was like, okay, I need to go into the real world and such. And I started looking at different career options and doing interviews and such. And I got pretty far along an interview process. I was going into like the last interview for a solid job that was going to make quite a bit of money. And I just had this weird feeling. I was like, don't do it. Like I felt like I was not going to enjoy. I felt like I was like kind of selling my soul a little bit to like corporate America or whatever. And I was like, oh, is this just like some dumb insecurity, or is this legitimate? Like, what am I doing? And I just kept nagging, and I kind of got in a really weird funk. I was like, all of a sudden it's a little tougher to wake up in the morning just thinking about this deal. I'm like, okay, you can't do this. So I turned it down and said, I'll just keep looking. And it didn't mean I was going to go back to baseball. I was like, maybe just this job isn't the job for me.
Right.
And then what happened was I got really sick again. But not, with stuff related to ulcerative colitis, but not true. So once I had my colon removed, which is ulcerative colitis, you have inflammation of your colon or large intestine. Those are the same. So that gets super inflamed. And your body just like attacks it, thinks it's like foreign. We got to get rid of it.
Right.
So once you take that out, it's like, if the disease is attacking the colon, you have no colon, you should be good. But now your body is operating without a colon. So they basically have to make a fake colon out of small intestine. So it's called an ileoJ pouch. So anyone who wants, they can look that up. But basically, as your small intestine is now adapting to being a large intestine, it gets a little irritated, and something called pouchitis can happen, which is basically the bacteria that usually live in your large intestine is now living in that segment of small intestine. That can irritate the small intestine. And so I started to get some of that. So it's a lot of the same symptoms of ulcerative colitis I now had without a colon because of the surgery to get rid of ulcerative colitis, which in my head was frustrating because that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, why would you go through all those surgeries just to have the same thing? So I had that going on, and so I started to lose some weight. And then the other thing you can get, and it's not all people get it with ulcerative colitis, is you can get a lot of joint pain. So it's like you get basically a form of arthritis from the autoimmune disease. And right then for whatever reason, could be related to the stress of kind of not knowing what I was doing in my life, looking into these jobs that I felt like I didn't want to do. And it got to the point where fall of just now, this last year, my stomach was killing me. So I was seeing the doctors for that. And my joints, my feet, my heel, both my heels and my wrists hurt so bad that, I was basically, because waking up in the middle of the night, like crawling over to the restroom, and I couldn't exercise anymore, which is such a huge part of an athlete's life. You can't take the exercise away from them. That's really tough.
Right.
Couldn't exercise, struggling to really walk around anywhere. And so, in that state, I was in no state to do job interviews, going in looking pale and skinny and very unhappy and in a lot of pain and not, so I was like, okay, I got to take a little break from this and just get healthy again. And while I was doing that, I just stumbled up to the high school just to see some, the coaches that were there. And actually I had some gear left over from UCLA that I was like, I wonder if I could, make a little bit of money and these kids, I'll give them a big discount on some UCLA gear or whatever. So I was trying to make it by any way I could. And sure enough, I get to the practice and I'm watching it and I'm like, gosh, I was in high school. My high school team didn't do too well. As my senior year, we did all right. But in general, I was kind of like, God, I really wish my high school we did better. And so I was up there and I'm watching this practice and I was like, I got to help these kids. Like, even if it's just for this day, like I got to help.
I got to help these kids.
So, and that's, I even look at it now. Okay, well, I'll get there later. But anyway, so I'm looking at them and I'm like, there's so much potential for these kids. I'm walking, their body language is all down. They have no pride in what they're doing. And I'm just, it's like, I can help these kids. So I just jumped in and started. I basically took over the practice. I was there just to visit. The next thing you know, I was like running the whole practice. So this is in fall,
awesome.
So it's not like an in-season practice, but I went there, thinking I'd hang out, and next thing I know, I'm, barking commands and running around.
I think that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. So then I talked to the coach after. I'm like, and he's like, oh yeah, you got to come down here more often. I was like, well, my schedule, and I really don't have anything going on. Like, So then I go, a couple of days later, I come again. I start coming a little more frequently, and I'm looking at this, and the coach is kind of offering. He's like, and he was the coach's name is Rich Poley, and he was unbelievably understaffed. It was a fall deal. There's like 60 kids in this baseball class.
Wow.
It's just like one coach. And so it's like, you can't really do anything with that many kids and one coach. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at all these kids that I feel like I can help, and I really don't have anything going on. And actually the only period of time during the day where the arthritis wasn't as bad was like from like 1 p.m. to like 4 or 5, which is the exact time slot that
practice is. Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And I kind of looked at him one day, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. Let's really do this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on board. And so that I started coming every day and really volunteering my time. I didn't think I was going to be getting any money from it. I just really wanted to give back to my high school and help those kids that I saw were just, they wanted someone to lead them, and they wanted some structure. And for me, I wanted baseball to be cool for them. And I felt like they loved baseball, and they're like, this is what they got to do, but they didn't have a whole lot of pride in it. So I jumped on it, and I started coaching every day setting up practice plans with the other coach, and really had a tremendous time coaching those kids. And if I was ever unsure about the baseball deal, I definitely fell back absolutely in love with it right there.
Now, how did you get to the tryouts?
Right. Okay. Yes, that's where that was headed.
I loved hearing that story. I wanted to hear that story too.
So then I finally I see the right doctors and play the whole game with insurance and stuff to get the right medicine. And I get on this medicine called Stelara. I'm sure now that I say it, you'll see it on TV and stuff. But anyway, so I get on this medicine, and the joint pain finally goes away. I get the pouchitis under control, and I'd lost all this weight again. So now I'm probably like 160 this time. And then at 160 pounds, and then I was like, okay, like I'm healthy again. And I don't really like looking in the mirror when I have no muscle. It's just the athlete in me, but it's just like, I don't like the way I look. Like I got to put on a lot of weight. So like just muscle. So I got obsessed with putting on the weight again, just because I just wanted to look better. And so I'd go in the mornings and work out and such and do the coaching. And next thing I know, I get back to 185, 190 pounds.
Wow.
And then I'm showing the kids, and I'm continuing to coach the high school, and I'm showing them how everything's done. And that's a lot of times a better way to coach, as I'm sure Chris is going to run into, rather than just telling them what to do, is kind of showing them. And then also
by example. Yeah.
Right. And if you could do it well, it not only like shows them, but also kind of inspires them, like, wow, he can throw that hard or hit that far, looks that smooth doing this. Like, I want to do that. So there's a whole lot of benefits from it. So I was like, okay, I started kind of doing it. And that same coach, so I work with Rich Poley, who's well connected in the baseball world. And he goes, Nick, you should really stop playing. So I didn't put on the weight planning on coming back. But then once I got strong, and honestly, coaching taught me a ton, and it clarified a lot of stuff. Because when you do stuff, you go through the motions, and you're an athlete, you just kind of self-organize and make it happen. But then when you got to coach and you got to explain something, and you're like, oh, you know what? Like, this is really how this works. And that clarified a lot of just the details of my game, and then trying to help people. I actually learned a lot just because they'd go home and a kid would ask you a question. Hey, how do you do this? What am I doing wrong? And in the moment, there's times I tell them, like, let me get back to you. I honestly don't know for sure. Take a video, whatever. Right. And that whole night you're thinking, and then I end up learning a lot. Then I go explain it. So because of that, I actually, from coaching, got a lot better at baseball than when I was at the very end of playing at UCLA. So without really even playing, I got a lot better.
Oh, wow.
And with that, then my coach says, hey, you should really do this. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. And he gets in contact with a guy in the Pacific Association, which is the independent ball in Northern California. And they say, hey, there's this open tryout, which I think they just kind of like have to do. I don't think they they seemed like they weren't really banking on getting a whole lot of guys. It was,
Right.
and you have to pay $100 to get into it, so it kind of seemed like it was more of a fundraiser anyway.
Oh,
So I go up to this thing and I drive up, and I do the tryout, and I mean the tryout, they got way more people than they thought they were going to get, so they had to tweak a bunch of stuff. So they hardly even evaluated us. Like, it was like they, you basically took some ground balls and shortstop and then played in a game. It was like we didn't run the 60. We didn't do. I was like, wow, okay. But I did well enough. I stole some bases. I got one hit, thankfully. My third at bat, I was like, going in 0 for 2, and I was like, realistically, if I don't get a hit here, this is toast. So I luckily got like a 2-strike, really solid line drive base hit.
Yeah.
Played well defensively, but it's like, you don't know if you caught their attention enough or whatever. And I was actually like, the team's based, and they sit us all down and do a draft with like all the
my gosh,
stay there
while you're there.
While we're there.
Oh,
and
my
they do a
goodness.
draft, and they're like, look, we're only going to take a few players. So you've got like 100 kids in these stands, and they're going through, and they're trying to put on like a whole show, which was kind of funny. But at the same time, I was like, what is going on here? Like,
what is going on here?
Yeah. So, and so of the 6 teams, some teams only took like 3 guys, 2 guys. And all that is gets them a spot to try out during spring training. So it's not even like you're on the team. It's an invite to spring training. And I was like the second to last pick, because like, I mean, it's such a small, it's like, what do you really see with a couple of at-bats and a game? It's like, so I was like the second to last pick, I think, and the last pick for my team, the Napa Silverados. And so I kind of got my foot in the door enough there. I'm like, okay, I got the invite to spring training. And I don't know about the rest of the league, but from my team, the 5 guys that they took, I was the only guy that actually made the spring training cut.
Yay, congratulations.
So went from their last pick, and then next thing you know, I'm the only guy that made it from there, and then I'm our starting shortstop and hitting second or first and third and bouncing around. So it was it was pretty incredible to just barely sneak in,
wow.
and then to really excel. So
it's destiny, I think so.
It seems like it a little bit.
Yeah. So now on this Napa Silverados team, and as of the last thing I read, I mean, you had a very, very impressive season, right? It was your statistics racked up like this. At the time when I was reading this, you were hitting .224 batting average. You had the team high with 59 walks. You were second with 3 triples. You were fourth with 7 home runs, 11 doubles, and 46 runs scored. Hello. And so, I mean, it's obvious baseball is, you're at home with baseball. This is what you were meant to do. How does this all make you feel, and what does this all mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, briefly on the statistics, I walked a lot, but I was kind of working the leadoff. But the stat that I was most pumped is I led the league in stolen bases with 31 stolen bases in an 80-game season. So that was a lot of fun. I didn't realize like that was my main tool for baseball, speed, until anyway. Overall, first professional season, just back to baseball. I mean, it was so much fun. I mean, even the last game of the season we played, that was probably the most fun I've ever had playing baseball. Awesome. Which is really cool, because a lot of people will tell you that their best time playing baseball was when they were 12 or it's usually when you're like a kid and it's still like a fun kid game.
Right.
But the fact that I had the most fun I've ever had playing a baseball game in professional baseball, I think that's pretty special. And I definitely feel like I found a home in baseball, and I know for sure, like I was doing the career search and such before, that whenever my playing days are done, be it in 2 years or be it in 20 years, I still, and I've done some coaching now, I think I'll for sure go into the coaching realm, and baseball is going to be my life. From the stuff that it's taught me, and, the lessons, to the joy, and just being around the guys. I think that's one of the biggest parts of this game, is just you're a part of a team, And like I mentioned with being sick, where when I was sick, I had my teammates come visit and such, but really my parents and my family was just like, that made that period of my life net positive is how I usually talk about it, because of essentially that really tight knit team. And then I for baseball, I get to be a part of a team and just spending that time with the guys and having fun. That's, I think that's really where it's at.
I mean, a lot of people can talk about being a part of, Little League or, some sort of club ball, but not very many people could talk about being a part of a professional team. So, I mean, that's a huge accomplishment, and congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
So now what's next for Nick during the off season, and what's in the horizon? Sounds like baseball is still going to be a part of it.
Yes.
What are you going to do during the off season? What's your plans?
So the current plan is, what I want to do is I'm becoming a substitute teacher for the mornings. That way I can have some income there. Independent ball does not pay very well, as you know. So substitute teaching in the mornings, and then I coach in the afternoons, and then I do private lessons after that practice ends. So Monday through Friday, busy with all that. I got to take a little bit of time to rest the body and whatever, just let them chill for a little bit. And then I'm hoping weekends I can not work weekends, which is usually travel ball time and such, to just kind of enjoy, go camping, live my life a little bit, and then, but then after that, a little bit of fall. It'll be, also train for baseball after I take a little break. And then I think I'm going to do a winter league. I think the one in Palm Springs, I'm not sure. We'll see. I'm still kind of looking into it. That way I can have a chance to play for maybe a more prestigious independent ball league for next year. And then, just kind of do the coaching and substitute teaching and train until it's time for another season.
Awesome. So now I always like to ask this question because I like to hear the responses. And so if you could do anything differently, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? I always say 21-year-old self, but I think you're really kind of close to that age anyways. So let's go back to the 8. Let's go seriously. So if you had to do anything differently, what would you tell your younger self?
Wow, that's a tough question. When I was 18, let's see, where was I when I was 18? I was a freshman in college.
Okay.
Knowing
what you know now, let's say.
Right.
What would you tell yourself, or what would you do differently? Or would you do anything differently?
I know, right? It's like, the way, I'm kind of one of those guys where it's like, the way it worked out, I think it worked out pretty good. So it's like, and you don't want to rob yourself of too much of the rough times. You get to learn a lot. So I a lot of times don't look at, really rough times and go, oh, you really shouldn't have done that. I haven't made too many big mistakes, and the little mistakes you learn so much from. But I mean, my freshman year in college was, despite winning a national championship, not playing wasn't easy and such, and the time at UCLA. But I think it took me a little bit of time to realize that, like, way more important than like your stats or did you play or not, or what your grade point average is or whatever, is the people that you're around. I've learned that in the last 5 years. So since then, is that at the end of the day, it's really all about the people, and so your relationships with people and having a good time. And so it's like, even with baseball, it's like, you want to perform really well, but also the stuff that you really end up remembering is the times you were laughing with your third baseman mid-game when the umpire got hit or something. Like it's so just a little bit of perspective there. I might give my 18-year-old self a little nudge to remind them, hey, it's some of these things that you think are really important aren't really as important as you might think, and what really is important is enjoying your time with the people you're around. So
awesome. Oh, that's so nice. I love that. And then, so for aspiring baseball players out there who want to be like Nick, who want to, have a chance at, trying out for a professional league, or, have a chance at being drafted, what would you tell them? What would you tell those young players?
I would tell them that they need to fall in love with the process. So if they love just the moment when they hit the home run and they get the jog around, that feeling, that's awesome. I love that too. But you also need to fall in love with the early morning weights and taking extra ground balls and the extra swings and a lot of the added, like basically the hard work that everyone looks at like, oh my gosh, that's so much hard work.
Yeah.
If you can fall in love with that, then you're going to do just fine, which is something that I think that's given me the opportunity to continue to play and such as I really fell in love with the process of becoming a good baseball player. So I love practice and I love extra hitting and I love taking ground balls, kind of just as much as the time where you really, make the diving play or hit the home run. Like that feels better because it's like, yeah, I did that. And, you felt like you did that because you put in all the extra hard work and such.
That's right. Oh my gosh. It just brings back memories of one coach saying, put in the work, put in all the hard work, right, Steve?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I have to say that I really do have to attribute a lot of, not just, your success or anybody's successes, but just the message, right, is put in the work. So for sure.
No, I mean, Jared Love, myself, Chris Rivera, we all attribute a lot of who we are as baseball players to Steve's teachings for sure.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry because I know I'm going to have him hear this because I want him to hear this. So it's going to make me cry. So anyways, what do you want listeners to know about Nick?
Oh, what do I want them to know about me? Oof, that's tough. I don't know if there's anything I really want them. I mean,
from start to finish, soup to nuts, who is Nick?
Oh, geez. Nick is Nick is disciplined, hardworking, but loves to have fun. I mean, Nick okay, so stop talking third person. I have my own stuff that I really like working at, but I also now I'm starting to do more of the coaching, and I love it when I get to help someone out and have them like take pride in kind of. I use baseball to do it. So using baseball to kind of I just started coaching again. I looked at the kids and then I'm looking at them and I'm like, I see a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, their shoulders are down, they're walking around, they don't really know why they're here, what they're doing. And I like to help them find something to really love and take pride in and go, you know what, I'm good at this and I enjoy doing this and this is who I am and just kind of help them find their way a little bit. So if my story can help anyone, guide through that and find something they really love and take pride in, and especially if anyone's battling with any health issues, be it ulcerative colitis or its sister disease Crohn's or anything else, if they can take anything, that's the reason that I decided to share this story. Because who's kidding who? No one really wants to talk about how often I have to go to the restroom and blood in my stools and stuff. It's like, it's not the most sexy disease, but I definitely was like, I definitely want to share it because if anyone can get anything out of it, then it's totally worth it. Because I had a guy while I was in the hospital that had the same disease that was playing UCLA football. And I remember the impact that it had on me, knowing that someone else had gone through this and had come out the other side doing well, excelling in athletics and whatever he wanted to do in his life, it was no problem. So that impact that had on me, then I was like, if I could do that even just for one other person, then I have to share. So.
Awesome. Well, you're definitely an inspiration. Your story is amazing. Hence the amazing athletes, which is why I knew I had to have you on the show, but definitely an inspiration, very motivating. And, I have no words other than you're truly amazing. So thank you, Nick, so much for being on the show. I truly really
Thank you for having me, Annie. I've enjoyed it. So thank you.
you. And then where can listeners follow you? Can they follow you on social media? Do you have
Yeah, I mean, I don't do the Twitter,
Okay.
but I have Instagram, Nick
Okay.
KERN, and then on Facebook, and I post stuff to both of them. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Perfect. Everybody, I will have all that information in the show notes below, so be sure to follow Nick and be along with his journey and his adventures, his future endeavors. So I think I speak collectively for, well, not only for myself, but for everybody, that we're so happy that you're on this awesome road and, on the road where you're destined to be. Here playing baseball, and the love of baseball is definitely pulling you through. So Nick, thank you so much for being on the show.
Annie, thank you. I really appreciate it. So thanks.
Well, that's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Annie Talks and hearing about Nick Kern and his amazing story. One thing he said that stood out to me was how baseball became his light at the end of the dark tunnel. He knew what he wanted to accomplish, and even while in the hospital began plotting out how he was going to overcome this medical setback and return to playing baseball, the game he loved. His will, his drive, his determination to get back to being healthy and return to the sport he adored and was passionate about is truly amazing. Way to go, Nick. You are an amazing athlete. Don't forget to check out Nick's social media links. I will have all that information down below in the show notes. Now, before we sign off, if you aren't already subscribed to my podcast, I invite you to hit subscribe and be notified anytime we upload a new episode. If you are already subscribed, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. If you could all please rate and review my podcast, please leave a comment or two. It would really help me out, and it will also help others to find this podcast. You can follow me also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. I will have all the links to my social media down below in the show notes. And lastly, if you enjoy this podcast, please consider contributing to my Patreon page. Your contributions will help to further the vision and mission of Annie Talks so that we can produce more episodes like this one and many other types of episodes and topics. The Patreon page will also be listed in the show notes below. Thank you all again so much for tuning in, and keep listening to Annie Talks.
Hey everybody, this is Nick Kern, professional baseball player, and you're listening to Annie Talks.